Hello, this is Jill Thompson, and I am going to provide you with Porter's value chain analysis for Nordic Wolf Mead. Starting out, here is a template for the value chain process, looking at the primary activities and the support activities and how that will help to generate revenue for the company. First off, we look at the value for the customer. So it's really important to see and determine what the customer will be willing to pay for. And then we deduct that from the overall cost of production. And that will give us the value chain. So looking at inbound logistics and operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales and service for basically the primary activities. Inbound logistics are relationships with suppliers, receiving products and equipment, stocking and storage, any incoming products, supplies, or services. Also includes operations, activities required to transform the inputs into the outputs. So there's the products and services. And then outbound logistics are activities required to collect, store, and distribute the outputs. Marketing and sales is promoting the products and services, really inducing the buyer to purchase them and helping to facilitate that purchase. And then finally, service, which are activities required to keep the product or service working efficiently after the buyer has purchased the product and it's sold and delivered. So let's look at inbound logistics. At Nordic Wolf Mead, after analyzing what the inbound logistics would be, I've determined that receiving equipment like honey, or receiving equipment including anything that it would take to produce our product, we also would be receiving honey, yeast, and other ingredients into the mead hall. So those are all inbound logistics. Bottle shop products would include t-shirts, glasses, hats, anything that we decide to put a Nordic Wolf logo on and sell in our bottle shop. So we would need to receive those into the company, and those would be inbound logistics. The state inspection of the facility for regulations, permit approval, and the FDA, that will all be happening. Storage of the mead, honey, and that would be in wine barrels and bottles, because we'll have larger barrels that contain the mead for our tastings, and then we'll also have bottles that people can purchase and that we'll be distributing to other companies, other wine shops and retail businesses. And then eventually, as we expand, caterers, musicians, and other vendors, products, services that they bring in to the company, and the expanding to offer events, and our marketing hall would include all of those things. So those would be inbound logistics for that portion of the company. Operations, looking at research and development as we produce our mead and determine different varieties and how we're going to expand into the future. Product testing will be very important, and that's part of operations. Another factor that really will make a strong difference in our manufacturing and our effectiveness overall is sanitation and the operation of our equipment, including the mead fermentation process, barreling and bottling of products, and how efficient we are in what we're using in equipment. Labeling bottles, not only on the marketing end, but also just the process of labeling and being efficient with labeling. Storage and aging of products, that's something we'll continue to expand on, but like wine, mead does get better with age, so we'll want to have space and have a system in place for effective storage. Tasting room stocking and systems will need to be in place because we'll have customers coming in. We want to have an effective system for people to come in and be able to have a positive experience while they're tasting, and systems in place for that as well. And then that will lead to eventual sales. The mead hall seating, service, and alcohol policies will need to be in place. as well as safety and security systems and the overall awareness of OSHA and what we need to do to make sure that our facility is safe for the employees and the patrons that are coming in. We'll also have signage in the facility, not only for safety and security of the employees and our customers, but also to effectively direct people so that they know where they're going if they want to go into the mead hall or the bottle shop, or if they're going on a tour. And then the event planning process and space rental agreements will be part of operations as well. So let's look at the outbound logistics. Packaging and distribution of product to wine shops is part of outbound logistics because we'll be having a distribution company help us with distributing to those retail shops. And then festivals, if we decide to promote our product at festivals, we need to transport that, as well as online sales. Well, one of the other areas which falls under outbound logistics is stocking tasting room with barrels and bottles. So we need to make sure that that also falls under outbound logistics, because we're going to be transferring our mead from our production space into the mead hall and adequately storing and having systems in place for being able to stock that product on a regular basis, as well as in the bottle shop. Selling mead and products in the tasting room, that's also part of outbound, because we're also stocking this and supplying the number of bottles and products that will be sold. And then distribution of products internally and externally to customers. So that will include distribution companies, as mentioned before, but also packaging for customers and purchasing products in-house. When they decide to purchase a bottle of wine or products, there'll be the process for products being placed in bags, and however we can enhance the experience for people so that they can take the product with them safely when they leave. So let's look at marketing and sales. Branding and product labeling and design will be really critical for Nordic Wolf Mead. We really want to create that step back in time feel, so our product needs to have that branding and labeling appeal for our customers. Customer service will be critical for our company. We want to offer 5-star customer service, and that all falls under marketing and sales. That will be customer service and public relations, including people coming into the facility and also when we are going out into the public. Tasting representatives will be at local wine shops, and they'll be representing our company when they're bringing the product out to the wine shops for tastings and also selling the product to the wine shops. Promotion of products and events in print, social media, outdoor, and local advertising is another area that's critical for marketing and sales, to know that we're effectively marketing and selling our product through promotional and public relation systems that we have in place. Attending networking events in the community, including fairs and festivals, is something that we've talked about, and that will be important to us because that will early on be a way that we could get our product out in front of people to try, and then draw them into the Nordic Wolf facility on another day, on another occasion. That's also a way to sell our product online, because we'll be introducing people to the product who may not live in our area, may not be able to attend or come to our events, or come to a tour, or tour our facility, or one of the tastings. So this way we'll be basically letting people know that we have online sales and that they can purchase when they're home, they can purchase our product. The sale of mead in-house to wine shops, online, and at festivals, again, that reinforces, our attending the events, but it's also how we sell the product, and having an effective sales pitch in place, and an effective process for the tasting, and really branding ourselves well in those situations. And then selling the total step back in time experience when people come into the Nordic Wolf facility, as well as in our marketing. But when they're there, we want them to have a real memorable experience. So that will all be part of our effective marketing and sales in-house. So service does not really tie in here for us because we do not service the product after the purchase unless, of course, someone needs to return something to the bottle shop, but we don't have a service component for our product. So let's take a look at the support features: procurement, human resource management, technology, and the infrastructure. And those areas all reinforce how we offer our product to the customer, including the whole process that I just outlined before. And it's an umbrella that oversees or supports all of those other aspects of the business, including procurement, which is the acquisition of inputs and resources; human resources, activities related to recruiting, hiring, training, etc. Technological development, including equipment, knowing that we have the the most efficient equipment and hardware, software, our procedures are in place, and technological knowledge related to the overall inputs and outputs. And then the infrastructure, the functions of departments, including accounting, legal, finance, planning, quality assurance, and management. So let's take a look at that as it relates to Nordic Wolf Mead. Developing partnerships with regional local bee farms for raw honey and other ingredients. That's where we'll be getting our honey, so that's part of the procurement process. Purchasing ingredients and merchandise. That we'll need to look at ideally local first, because we are going to move towards being a sustainable company and would like to try to purchase as many local ingredients as we can. But also procurement will be looking at those ingredients that we can't find locally and where we can best purchase those and develop relationships with other providers that would then be able to send them to us. Purchasing fermenters, bottling and labeling equipment, and servicing support, that'll all fall under procurement, as well as purchasing barrels and bottles for storing and selling mead. Contracting with distribution companies to transport mead to the wine shops is something that we've been looking into. We'll need to utilize that service in terms of permits and the legal issues that are required for distribution in the state. So we'll use the distribution companies, and also there are distribution companies that will help with online sales as well. And then we also will need support for marketing and sales of the product. So we'll look to external marketing specialists, boutiques and firms, and other resources outside of our internal company to help with that side of the business. So that would all fall under procurement. Technology for us will include stocking bottles, the aging of mead, that whole system and process, and wanting to have something state of the art, but also understanding, temperature and light and all of the things that we need to do to make sure that we're effective for that process, as well as tracking our inventory, both internal and external, and having really effective systems in place for that. Monitoring equipment upgrades and improving production systems will be really important for us, and that all falls under technology. Packaging and shipping materials and the process for packaging and shipping materials, so that our materials are packed safely and will make it to their destination safely. And also that would include what we might need to keep in mind in terms of temperature and the materials that we would need to use to ship our merchandise. Tracking sales, expense data for production and sales, that's really important. We need to have technological systems in place for that, so that we're effectively tracking our sales and expenses, so that our company will continue to be successful and grow and generate revenue into the future. Scheduling and paying for distribution, that's something that will fall under technology, because there need to be systems in place to make sure that we're scheduling our distributors at given times. We know when they'll be arriving, someone will be there on the dock to help out with loading up the vehicles and them knowing what's being shipped. And also our HRIS systems, the human resource information systems in place to effectively monitor our employees and their payroll and benefits. And then e-commerce sales and our website. So we will be selling online. That's all part of e-commerce. So having effective processes in place for that. And that will tie into our website because people will be coming to our website in order to make their purchases. And in addition to that, as I mentioned before, the safety and security systems will be important to be in place, but technology also plays a big role with that. So that will also fall under technology for Nordic Wolf Mead. Human resources will include our staffing for production, tasting room, and the bottle shop. So there's all different segments of our business that we'll need to make sure we're hiring the right people for with the right experience and monitoring our staffing and our hours and make sure we have enough enough staff to meet the customer need. Consulting with employment law and contract attorneys, that will be something that we do early on to make sure that we are following the employment law for North Carolina and federally. And also contracting attorneys for contracts, especially as we move into event planning, but also contracts that will have to do with working with vendors. Policies and procedures for hiring, retention, and termination of staff. That's really important. We need to make sure that we have policies and procedures in place. We will utilize a lawyer at first to make sure that we have the correct policies, but we also will need to have continue to improve and refine those as we grow and develop as a company, and also including the retention and termination process for staff, because it's really important that people understand that process when they're being hired and considered for a position, but also employees need to know what the retention plan is, and also if for some reason, unfortunately, something were to happen where someone violated a policy and procedure, well, what's our termination process for staff? And then, of course, the chain of command and supervision. That would fall under human resources in terms of supervision, who's doing reviews for which employees, because management and having effective supervision for these different areas in our company will be critical. So human resources will certainly track that. And then employee training, retention strategies, and employee relations are all aspects that we will need to develop systems, schedules, and strategies for moving forward. So let's look at the firm infrastructure. Production, mead hall, administration, legal, financial consultation, accounting, and payroll really all fall under our firm infrastructure. We may not necessarily have, for instance, a human resources department early on. We will have a process in place for that, but we will need to have an infrastructure in place for production and the mead hall, the facility, the administrative side of the business, and accounting, payroll, and then utilizing those consultants. And then developing and implementing an annual strategic plan and 5-year plan will all fall under infrastructure, because that will be process. That will be something that will move us towards growth in the future, and we'll need to have a plan in place and be meeting regularly. The founders will initially be in charge of that, and then we will, obviously, as we grow, include managers, and they would be managers and directors would be a part of that process. Research and development, also a critical part of firm infrastructure. That's something that we need to continue to focus on as we grow and maintain our competitive edge. And quality assurance, product testing, production efficiency, and safety all fall under that firm infrastructure, because that's something that will continue to help our organization grow and ensure that we have the most current processes in place to make sure that we're growing well into the future, and that would all fall under our infrastructure. Revenue and expense reporting, accounting procedures, and tax preparation also fall under the firm infrastructure, in terms of having systems in place, but also the infrastructure so that we can have those systems in place. That concludes the presentation, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to the analysis of Nordic Wolf Mead for Porter's value chain.